Alright, let's start breaking down this lesson on how to read guitar tab, because learning to read guitar tab is a super valuable skill, and I think you can do it with a little bit of practice. It's really not that hard, and I think you just need to practice it a little bit. And again, once you learn to read guitar tab, it's really going to open a whole new world to you of learning all these songs that people have already tabbed out. So there's probably songs that you know and want to learn that someone's already taken the time to tab out. And if you can learn to read guitar tab, then you can play those songs even faster. So super, super valuable skill to be able to read guitar tab. Also, reading sheet music is valuable, but I think guitar tab is even easier than reading standard notation or sheet music. So let's start breaking it down. Let's look at our guitar neck here. And the one little difference between tab and standard notation is that in standard notation, the lines are different notes, and then the spaces in between the lines are also different notes. In tab, it's laid out a little differently. Each line corresponds to a string. So the lowest looking note or line on the tab paper is the lowest sounding string, and the highest line is the highest string. So you have 6 lines, you have 6 strings. If it's banjo tab, you have 5 strings, 5 lines. Mandolin tab, 4 lines, 4 strings. So each line corresponds to a string, not to a note like standard notation. So that's really the biggest difference, I think, between tab and standard notation. The rhythm is pretty much the same, but really that's the big difference is in standard notation, each line corresponds to a different note, and you actually have to know what that note is, and that's why I think it's a little trickier. Where guitar tab, all you have to do is figure out what line you're on and then figure out how many frets you have to go up. You don't technically have to know what note it is, which makes it a little bit easier to start. Okay, so let's just go through the first 2 lines of tab. So again, we've got our lowest string. You can also see below the tab I put the pick direction, so the staple looking symbols are downstrokes. The V looking symbols that you'll see in a second are upstrokes. So I also put that into all my tabs so you can see what pick direction you should use, which is really important later on. So again, you hit the low string, and that'd be a quarter note, so 1, and then you can hit the next string, 2, and you'll see there's 0, so what does the 0 mean? So the 0 means open, so no frets. If you saw a 1, you would find that string and then count up how many frets. So if you saw a 2, and we'll break that down in a second, but basically the zeros are open, so no frets, so 0 frets. Okay, so go up to the A string, and then go up to the D string, and then G string, B, high E, and then you can go back down. So I think the trickiest part about tab is just getting that picture in your mind of that the lowest note is the lowest string, and everyone's brain kind of pictures these images a little bit different, so kind of, you know, flip it in your mind however you need to. I pretend that I'm looking down at my guitar when I'm reading the tab, and that's what helps me, but again, I know everyone kind of pictures these things in their mind a little bit different, so what I always tell students is do whatever you need to do as long as you understand how it works. That's all that matters. It doesn't need to make sense to anyone else. But that's how I do it. I picture I'm looking down at my guitar when I'm reading the tab. So let's move on to the next measure. So we could do some up and down picking. You'll see the upstroke, the V looking symbols. So those would be like 8th note. Or if you want to change between strings, pick direction is really important as well, and I always put that in all my tabs because I think it's really important to get the proper pick direction. Let's move on to, again, adding some frets. So let's go to measure 4. We're going to be up on the high E string. So again, our first note is open. Our second note is the 2nd fret, so we can put our first finger. You can see I also put the left-hand fingerings below the tab. So 1 is your index finger, 2 is your middle finger, 3 is your ring finger, 4 is pinky. So we have open, 2, 3, and then back to 2. Again, you read it like a book from left to right, so if you're playing them one at a time, There's nothing particular about those notes. You could try it on any string. You know, you're just basically practicing using different fingers. You can also practice using your different dots. That's good practice. And remember, you're always counting up from your nut, which is 0. So open, 1, 2, 3. Let's look at another technique, very common technique: hammer-ons, pull-offs, and slides. So you'll see in the tab an open 2 with a little H above it. And every tab does this a little bit different. Sometimes you might see HO. Sometimes you'll just see that little like parentheses. But usually there's some indication that you're doing a hammer-on there, which is changing the tone without playing 2 notes. So instead of going, now I'm playing 1 note, and then changing the note with my left hand. Or the opposite to pull off. Or you can do a slide, or a backslide, or hammer on between 2 fingers like 2 and 3. So those are really the main tricks you'll see. I mean, sometimes you might see a bend, you know, bending the note or something, but those are really the main ones you're going to use at first: hammer-ons, pull-offs, slides. The other thing you might see is, again, I was talking earlier about reading them left to right like a book. But what if you see them in a column? So that means you play them all at once. So like measure 6 would be like an E minor. So if you see them all in a column like that, that means strum. Or you could do like a pick, down, up, strum. So again, if you see them in a line or a row, you play them all one at a time. If you see them in a column, you strum them all at once, okay? Let's take a really easy, just simple song and kind of work through it in the tabs. You've probably heard this before. So we're going to start on the open 4th string, and then 2nd fret on the 3rd string, and then open 2nd string, and then 2nd fret on the 3rd string, and we got a half note. So let that ring out for 2 beats, and then open 3rd string, down to the 4th fret, 4th string, 2nd fret, and then open for a half note. So let's try that. So we have. And then 2nd phrase, 2nd fret on the 3rd string, open, 4th fret, 4th string, 2nd fret for a half note. Repeat that same thing. Then back to the opening melody line. Alright, so that's the basics of learning to read guitar tabs. So not too hard, but it will take a little bit of practice. But again, the more you do it, the easier it gets. All right, hopefully that helps you out. All right, good luck.